Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the monastery, the open bar of the internet, the world's greatest shit show, and the place where we, the good brothers and sisters of this most holy of temples, seek enlightenment through the drunkest, craziest, and most batshit ways possible. I am your one and only gaming monk, better known as Mildra, and with me, I have a newcomer into the temple, coming to us as part of the conglomerate that is Hammer City Games, currently developing Hypermall Unlimited Violence, which has managed to get about, by the time we're recording this, 10.4 thousand Canadian, and it was only asking for 10,000 Canadian. The one and only JD Clément. How you doing today, man?
I'm great. It's actually Clément.
Clément.
I know it has the fancy accent. It's okay. Don't worry about it.
I spent way too much time with Quebecois.
Yeah, I know. It's Taylor. I'm doing great. It's an honor to be in the temple. It's I'm scared of the temple though. Like,
why?
It's just so dank and dark, and I'm scared.
It's not that dark, and it's not that dank. What are you talking about?
Listen, I actually don't know. Anyway, hi.
Yeah. So, one of the traditions around here is going into the humble beginnings, in a sense. So, walk me through your first introduction to role-playing games and what made it stick.
Okay, so I'm not quite sure that my first exposure was, but I believe it was when I was like 6 or something. So over 20 years ago. And my babysitter was a huge nerd. She introduced me both to role-playing games and Magic the Gathering. Mm-hmm. So really, this is all her fault. And she asked me to join a 3.5 game of D&D. A terrible system, very bad. But at the time, I didn't know better. And so I was a little kid, and I played in that. And I guess I was really annoying because she had the dungeon fall on us after our second session. I think because I ate too much sugar.
Rocks fall, everyone dies?
Yeah, legitimately. Like, I'm pretty sure I just annoyed everyone who were much older than I was. And that's understandable. And so I was chasing that high ever since. Yeah, I was like 6. I don't know. I have no idea if that's a good answer, but that is what I remember.
I'll simply state that there's been a variety of answers here, and a lot of them run the gamut. Some sillier than others, I will admit. But there's no bad answer, because it doesn't matter how you get to the dance so long as you're, at the dance.
Yeah, of course.
And this kind of thing is no exception to that approach. Now, with Hypermall, it is very much taking a lot of inspiration from the shitpost that isn't known as Cruelty Squad.
Yeah.
So I'm curious how you first came across that game and what prompted the idea of doing something in the spirit of that in TTRPG form.
I forget how I first heard about Cruelty Squad, I'll be honest. But I played it, and obviously I really enjoyed it because it's very silly, very funny. And so the idea came, I had a dream, and the nugget was that it would be an immersive sim video game where you would play as basically Master Chief if he was Paul Blart, like a super soldier mall cop. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was really funny, so I wanted to even actually make it into a video game. I don't know anything about computers, so that quickly disappeared, and it just became like a document on my computer that had ideas. Mm-hmm. And I had been making on and off an adaptation of RuneQuest, kind of, for like Powered by the Apocalypse, for my friends, basically. and eventually was like, oh, why don't I just make this into a tabletop game? And then I went into a weird fugue state for like, I don't know, 2-3 months, where all I did was basically sit on the couch and write Hypermall. And then at the end of that, it was finished, and I don't know, man. It came out of me naturally. I was just kind of letting it come into being.
Mm-hmm. I can certainly understand that. Sometimes an idea is just stuck there, just looking for an excuse to get out.
Yeah, exactly. And in my case, the idea is about horrible meat people killing rich people.
Yeah. And I suppose Cruelty Squad certainly helped. But I think one of the other things I find interesting is that you listed 2 other games in the inspiration list that are in the category of immersive sims.
Yeah.
And those are the original System Shock, though I'm guessing if you played it nowadays, you'd be playing the enhanced edition instead of the OG original.
I mean, I tried to play the original, or not the OG, but like the enhanced. Yeah, I guess it's called the enhanced edition. The one that looks like it's a graphing calculator.
That both of them look like graphing calculator, but the enhanced edition has some slightly better quality of life.
It has mouse look. Yay!
Keep in mind there wasn't exactly a precedent for what stuff like System Shock was doing back then, so it was the Wild West. And I have to give my props to Night Dive for the fact that we can even play it in that form, since trying to get old PC games to work on modern hardware is tricky.
Oh, it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare.
Especially if it's one of those cases where the speed of the game is determined by the potential speed of your GPU. You can have things move way too fast, like, say, playing the original Test Drive without modding it, where what's supposed to be normal speed ends up being going to plaid.
It's like in Destiny 2, you take more damage from fire effects if you're, like, depending on how your frame rate.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, the optimal strat is to use a shitty computer for certain raids. I don't know if anyone does that, but, like, it is noticeable. It's a noticeable difference.
If you ask the speedrunners, they'll probably do that and more, because speedrunners are an interesting bunch. Same goes for the world first crowd in most MMOs that have a rating system. But the other one that you listed in here that I found interesting was Prey. And I specifically have to bring up that we're talking about the 2017 version by Arcane Studios, not the original Prey by 3D Realms, which, don't get me wrong, is great, but it's a different vibe.
Yeah, Prey 2017 is one of my top 10, maybe top 5 games ever. I just love that game.
Mm-hmm.
The influence is much more subtle than Cruelty Squad. It's more like the way that they present abilities was a big influence on how I wrote the abilities. Like, I didn't want a lot of, like, there's psychic powers and there's mutations and stuff, and I didn't want them to be strictly your number goes up. There are a few, like, that cause you to, like, a myostatin inhibitor, which, like, makes you stronger. But a lot of the abilities, like, I imagine them in that the game presents a problem, which is how are you going to kill this person in a world where people can't die? And then I imagine these abilities as the kind of tools that immersive sims give you, like in Prey, for example, the stupid Nerf crossbow. Like, that thing's useless when you first look at it, but you can use it to access. You can use it to manipulate touchscreens and distract enemies and all this stuff. So that is where the influence came from. Less like the aesthetics or even like story kind of stuff. Although the aesthetics of Prey 2017 are great. I love the Art Deco, weird alternate future thing. Yeah, so it's like that. It's thinking about how abilities could be used in a variety of ways, and not thinking about the singular path they could be used for,
Mm-hmm.
and presenting like this holistic package of, okay, so you have a problem and you're in a weird situation. How are your random abilities that you've been given? How could they possibly help you approach this?
Yeah. So, as I understand it, when it comes to the core mechanic, you're using a D6 based system.
Yeah,
Is
dice pool
it
system.
so? Since you said it's a dice pool, is it a case where you're rolling and you're comparing a sum, or are you rolling and looking for hits, i.e., successes?
Hits. Yeah, you 5 to 6 on a D6 is a success, and you need two or more successes to get a full success. If you get one, it's a mixed, so like you get some of what you want, and then no successes is a failure, and you suffer the consequences.
Yeah.
So
like
yeah.
the 3 degrees approach with PBTA.
Yeah, exactly.
So, which I've always simplified it as yes, but, no, and.
Exactly, yeah. It has the extra, well, it's not really a wrinkle, but extra thing where damage is determined by the number of successes you roll.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, you're trying to hit someone, and say you've got 3 successes, you would roll 3d6 for the damage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With that in mind, how would armor work in that setup? Is it a case where it reduces successes, or
armor's a yeah, it's one thing that needs a bit of work, and for that system, which I call the rat system, the SRD's free, but anyway, in the rat system, armor, for Hypermall, armor just reduces the damage you take. Originally, in a previous version of it, it was based on like hit location, because there is a hit location chart. There's 36 hit locations, several of which are jokes, but that became too complicated. It was like more math than the game needed, so it just flatly reduces the damage by that much. So armor basically does almost jack shit in Hypermall, which is kind of on purpose, because dying doesn't matter.
I can get that. Now, a lot of times when games use a success-based D6 pool, they will often do it in an attribute and skill setup. But given that you're trying to go for a simpler approach, I mean, you brought up Troika as one of your inspirations. I'm guessing that it's just straight attributes instead of attribute and skill.
No, it is actually attributes. You form a dice pool. There's 4 stats. There's what are they? Jeez, I have a terrible memory. So, they're Thinkitude, Craveability, Physic, and what the hell's the other one? There's a 4th one. I wrote this game. I definitely know what I'm talking about. What the hell? There is a 4th one. It's, sure, the 4th one, whatever it is. And then you have skills based on your background. Like who you were before you became a contractor for the Slaughter app. And you take whichever one that is most relevant to what you're trying to do, and then you add it with your most relevant skill. And then there's also passions, which can give you a plus or minus 1 die to your die pool, based on how your character feels about what they're doing.
Yeah, I can certainly get that. So, with that in mind, with what exactly would your choice of background as a contractor, which is the name for the player characters, would that grant you? Is that just going to be your starting attributes, or something else?
It's kind of a class, sort of, like in Troika, how there's 36. I don't remember the term. They might use the term background. I'm not sure, but there's like 36 jobs that you So you roll d6, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And they are what you were before you became a contractor. So they give you skills. They can also give you mutations or psionic abilities, depending on what they are. They give you gear as well. So like, for example, the Catacomb Dweller is the mutated descendant of the British Parliament that lives underneath the Hypermall in the bone-filled catacombs.
Mm-hmm.
They start with they can eat basically rotting flesh, and they can eat garbage, essentially. They have a mutation called Carrion Comfort, and they also can see in the dark.
So Clan Nosferatu.
Yeah, exactly. They're skinny and pale, and they talk like this, eh? Or you could be like, I don't know, you could be a psychic detective who they start with like a pistol or like a revolver, and they can use psychic abilities to see the past of objects they touch.
Mm-hmm.
And they've got investigative abilities. You can be a hamburger cook, like a guy who does start with a pistol because your employer gave it to you and expects you to lay down your life to defend the burger joint. Yeah, there's all sorts of weird backgrounds. You can be an AI, you can be an alien. You can be a guy who incepts into people's dreams to advertise to them. Yeah, it's all kind of weird stuff.
Given that variety of background, I will admit that one of the things that really starts popping up in my head hearing that is 2000 AD and some of the insanity in that universe.
2000 AD? Not familiar.
Are you familiar?
Twilight,
Are you
2000?
No. Are you familiar with Judge Dredd?
Oh, yes, vaguely.
Yeah, his stories are collected in the anthology comic 2000 AD.
Okay.
But you look at the way the Mega Blocks work and the way Mega City 1 works, and it wouldn't. Some of that wouldn't be too far removed from the way you describe the Hypermall as this this mall on steroids that has floors upon floors upon floors, or, not to sound too Minnesotan, something like the Mall of America on crack.
Yeah, it's a big inspiration for the Hypermall's like shape is the manga Blame.
Mm-hmm.
If you read it, it's about a big city, an infinite city.
Blame is one of my favorite manga, but it's one that I do not believe works in anime.
Man, I like some of the movies. I think they're good. But yes, I agree.
Part of the reason I say that is so much of it is all about immersion, and that's easy to do. That's easy to do in something where the pace is up to the reader, like in a manga or in a book.
Yeah, I can see that. That makes sense.
Because the ideal way to read Blame, in my opinion, is in some room in complete silence. Because that's very much the atmosphere that it's going for. And when you consider that you've got to score certain moments in an animation, it kind of takes the atmosphere out of it. Maybe if you had like Science Saru handle it, who are known for being a bit off kilter when it comes to their animation, they might be able to pull it off. But yeah, the city in Blame is this massive structure that takes up the entirety of the Earth, and I believe some of the neighboring planets, because when they ran out of material on the Earth, they started grabbing material on other planets to add to the city because nobody told them to stop.
Yeah, all the robots just are kind of doing what they were last told to do, and that causes problems for everybody.
That, and it can take years, if not centuries, to move between floors.
Yes.
And I can certainly see that. And since Cruelty Squad is brought up, one of the big setups for a lot of the levels in that game is you have to find this particular target, kill them, and then get out without getting yourself killed. And
Yep.
when it comes to obviously that's something that can be done easily in a video game. When it comes to tabletop, things get a little bit tricky. So how do you usually set up that sort of design, and do you have like a random mission generator within the full book?
Yes, there's a. I don't know if I would use the word complex. It's really simple, but it's long. There is, and it has lots of options. There's a mission generator, and so it has, it's a bunch of D66 tables, or 36 options, and it'll have options for who the target is, what kind of like security they might have, where it is. So like you've got, it could be in the food court, or it might be in a heavily guarded secret underground lair, and you might be killing like a guy trying to unionize, or you might be killing a gang leader, or a cyborg, or a guy in a mech. You could be killing Dracula. That's one of the options. And then there's like complications, like there's angels are attacking the area, or there's kaiju or whatever, or like the internet isn't working in the area, so like you can't resurrect, so you have to be very careful. And there's like different ways you can do it. They'll tell you like, you have to use this specific type of gun, or you have to make it look like a false flag attack, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And there's other complications. So there's like a bunch of different tables, and it culminates in a very chaotic experience where no mission is pretty much no mission is the same. And you're usually dealing with lots of security or different challenges, like the gravity could be off. So like, how are you going to deal with that? Yeah, so that's kind of how you do it. And the mission parameters are flexible. Like the GM could change. They could just choose like, you have to kill this guy and get out, or they could use the table and decide like, you have to kill this guy by doing a drive-by indoors. Good luck.
Yeah, some of that kind of reminds me of the Thief games, especially the two proper Thief games. The first two, where the higher difficulty doesn't increase the health or damage. It just adds more stuff that you have to do in order to complete the mission.
Yeah, exactly. That kind of there's just more stuff. I wanted a lot of horizontal design in the game. Like you can get stronger, but most of the time people like advance their characters by vaping mutagen and then rolling on the mutation table, or they get a hole drilled in their head and then they unlock a random psionic ability. Yeah, like there's a lot of stuff like that.
And speaking of psionics, in a lot of these kind of systems, psionics is a very high risk kind of thing. It can give you some interesting stuff to do, but it can also screw you over if the dice gods don't like you that day. How do you handle psionics? Is it just another type of ability roll, or is there a different approach?
So, psionics are basically, it's like a spell, but you get it you need to have a surgeon drill a hole in your head, like trepan you, in order to unlock psionic abilities. Because just like real life, that unlocks your potential. So it's not technically if the GM decides at a failure state, if like you roll really bad, the failure is based on what is happening narratively. So that could mean like, your head explodes or whatever. But the main danger is you have to give up hit points in order to form your dice pool. You use your Thinkitude, which is your intelligence stat, plus, and you form your dice pool with that plus however much 1 to 3 damage that you take and that's your dice for casting or using psionics. So it can kill you, which again doesn't matter because you can resurrect for $1 basically, or for a debt.
Yeah.
There's no. It's not like a 40k where like you can accidentally summon a demon. You can summon a demon, and that's one of the psionic abilities. But like, unless you fuck up really bad, it's probably not going to happen.
Which, if you're screwing up that bad, then that's probably the universe telling you maybe you should play a different character.
Yeah, and that actually leads into the resurrection quirks.
Mm-hmm.
So resurrecting is like the company that makes the Christ. That's what they're called. It's an acronym. That makes the machines has a profit incentive to not make them perfect. So every time you die, you have to not only pay to resurrect, you also have to roll on a table for resurrection quirks. Some of them are pretty benign, like your hair color changes, or the system thinks your name is different. So like change your character's name by 1 letter. Some of them are bad, like it summons an angel, which will use all the nearby flesh to form a body and start killing people. That's really bad. You don't want that.
Mm-hmm.
Could be you switch bodies with someone, some rando, or a version of you from another universe is what gets resurrected, so you have a different background now. All these kind of things can happen when you die. To add basically more chaos. I'm not a huge fan of like random tables for random sake, but these have always been fun. It's more fun than just you paid some money and then you came back.
Yeah, I can certainly get that, and I'm reminded once again with how you died too many times with Cruelty Squad, and the difficulty ends up going down, but things end up getting worse for you. Like first time around, Divine Light is severed. Then a few times after that, Hope is eradicated.
Yes. That was a big inspiration for it. Divine Light Severed is just very funny. Just like a super funny thing to say. God doesn't love you anymore. You died too much, idiot.
And in the same vein, I'm guessing that you have some weapons in the weapon list that are going to be very useful, and some that are jokes. Much in the same way that Cruelty Squad decided to put the zip gun in, the thing sucks.
Yeah, none of the weapons in Hypermall are like necessarily bad. Some of them suck, but they're not like terrible. Like the standard pistol, or sorry, the cheapest pistol I should say, is it's called the normal. It's a single-use 3D printed gun that costs 1 debt, and you can't use it more than like it has 10 shots or whatever, or it has however many shots, and then it melts and it's no longer usable. And there's like what is it called? I'm gonna say some stupid stuff, right? Give me 1 second. Where is it? Where is it? Oh, the Miracle of Love Gambatse Natsu laser rifle is it's a sponsored anime gun that shoots lasers, and the art for it is it's gonna look like a hentai sweater, but it is a gun. So yeah, there is dumb weapons in this, but most of them, they will do their job. Most of them will kill people. There is also a gun that shoots piss, so there's that.
Well, TF2 had Girardi, so mulligan, I guess. Now, given that and given the inspirations, I am curious how you would handle stealth when it comes to this sort of thing. Is it just a standard roll, or do you have something more elaborate in mind for sneaking about?
Sneaking, like the act of sneaking is like a roll, or if it's like I say in the book, don't roll them like unless there's an interesting reason. Like it only roll if there's interesting narrative consequences to failure. If it's just like and stealth is usually interesting because you get caught. So yeah, it's just basically a roll. There is instead of like a sneak attack, but like bonus damage, you can choose to automatically succeed on a hit. So it counts as getting 2 successes, which would be 2d6 damage, which is not bad, but it's not perfect. So like you don't have to roll the hit, you just do it, and you deal 2d damage from a sneak attack, or you can risk it and roll to hit them to maybe get a bigger amount of damage. So that's basically how the system handles stealth.
Yeah, I can certainly get that. Now, when it comes to enemies, I mean, obviously you've got a handful of targets, you've got a handful of goons. With goons, that's basically mooks. So how do you handle it so that mooks can show up and be dispatched relatively easily compared to full-on assassination targets?
So there is a bestiary, like just like 36. Some of them might show up as like these are cultists in the employ of your target or whatever, or these are like, this is what the stats for an executive of a company might have. And yes, they do have a ceremonial rapier. Stuff like that. So combat in Hypermall is super swingy, and that's on purpose. Like with a good if you roll 66 on your hit location, the person just explodes instantly. Like they insta kill, and that can also happen to you. And the reason is, again, that death doesn't really matter. Except when it does, and there's situations where you're a place where the resurrection matrix, the thing that resurrects you, isn't active, or you've shut it off in order to permanently kill your target because that's your job, and then the game becomes very tense. And I forgot where I was going with this, and I forgot what the question was, but yeah, there's that.
So, given that, I do remember one of the things from Cruelty Squad was the main way to get weapons was to find them in a level and then try and get out of that level with it on hand. Yes,
that was always a really cool mechanic.
Is that something that you're going to be keeping that, the way you'd get better equipment is either through debt or through finding it during missions?
Yeah, there's no specific system for that. But I mean, if you kill a guy and he has a mech, why wouldn't you take it? Like, what are you doing? It's a mech. What are you doing? Or if he has a cool gun, take his cool gun. Right? So there's no specific mechanics. That's an interesting idea, though. I do like that, and I did always like that in Cruelty Squad, because it was like, well, I want the fishing rod. I just found it. Better carry it around for the rest of the level. Yeah. So, I mean, I would encourage players and GMs to allow that to happen. There's no reason to not let them pick up a gun. Right?
And since this isn't a video game, you don't have to deal with that two-weapon limit.
Yes. Yeah. There's no encumbrance rules in Hypermall, really. I mean, you can't carry a house on your back unless you're a big crab, I guess. You can play a crab person, by the way.
Yeah. But with that said, what are you shooting for as far as a page count for Hypermall?
So the currently available version on itch it doesn't have any of the layout that I'm currently working on for the physical edition.
So it's an ash can.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, that'd be a good term for it. It is currently 162 pages, I believe. Might be a little bit less than that. 160. So for the physical edition, I don't know, probably more than that.
Probably an extra 20 pages, maybe?
Yeah, probably. So the rules fit on one page, and the rest is basically just character options, like the different backgrounds and the psionics. So like stuff you don't need to read unless it comes up. The system itself is very simple. There's just a lot of stuff attached to it.
I can certainly get that. Now, as far as a release window, what would you be shooting for?
Like when the physical edition would come out?
Yeah. Obviously, there's a lot of moving parts when it comes to printing and shipping and all that, so I'm not expecting a hard date.
So that's why these kind of questions are why I joined up with Brendan, Hammer City Games, because he knows how business works, and I don't. But basically, I don't know when it will be in people's hands. I wish I could tell you. I might have at one point known the answer, but again, I have a horrendous memory. But the physical edition should be finished in November, hopefully. And then however long it takes to print it after that.
I can get that, especially with a game that is this cracked out as it is. But with that said, I do want to sincerely thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to come all the way to my temple and enjoy the madness that happens around here. And
oh yeah, of course.
Anytime you see fit to return, the door is always open. As I often say around here, drinking is not mandatory, but it is encouraged. And
I will drink.
And
I didn't have anything to say.
Yep. And of course, a sincere thanks goes out to everyone who took the time out of their schedule to come onto the show and enjoy the madness. And there'll be plenty more where that came from, as there always is here on the open bar of the internet. But until then, on behalf of the good brothers present and not present, my name is Mildra. I am your gaming monk. Stay fucking frosty, everybody.
Oh